Hi, my name is Gurdeep Sangtani. In this session, I am going to talk about some basics of ABAP Objects. ABAP Objects follows the four basic principles of object-oriented programming. These are abstraction, encapsulation, inheritance, and polymorphism. Abstraction is the ability to reflect real-world processes in programming language. For this purpose, we have attributes, methods, and events. We use attributes, methods, and events in ABAP Objects to create programs which reflect the real-world processes. Encapsulation is the ability to restrict the visibility of the coding. For this, we have in ABAP Objects, we have different visibility sections. These are public, protected, and private. Inheritance is the possibility to derive one class from another. And polymorphism is the possibility to use same method for different objects. In real world example, this would be, for example, if we have method open, and we can use this method open to open the object window, or we can use the same method open to open the object door. Let's have a close look at components of a class. A class has attributes, methods, and events. A class has three different visibility sections. These are public, protected, and private. Within each visibility section, it's possible to have the components of the class like attributes, methods, and events as static components or instance components. So for example, we can have attributes, methods, and events as static within the public section, or we can have instance attributes, methods, and events within the public section. Similarly, we can have the components in private and protected section. Let's have a look at how we can create several objects from a class. We have a class here. We have public section, protected section, and private section. We also have static components and we have instance components. In the programming code, we can use the statement create object and create several instances from this class. Each instance is called an object. So we have object 1 and object 2 and so on. We can have any number of objects. What is very important here to understand is when we create objects from a class, only the instance components of the class are replicated to these objects. So object 1 has its own set of instance components and object 2 has its own set of instance components. These are independent of each other. On the other hand, we have static components which belong to the class. These static components can be accessed by the objects. So object 1 and object 2 can access the static components of its class, but these static components are common to all the objects. So there is only single set of static components, whereas instance components are available for each object individually. Let's have a look at how inheritance works in ABAP Objects. Say for example, we have a class C1 and another class C2 which we derive from class C1. Then the class C2 inherits all the components of public and protected section of class C1. This is called inheritance. The class C1 in this case is the superclass and class C2 is called the subclass of class C1. As you can see, all the components, attributes, methods, and events are inherited from protected and public section. Other than that, class C2 can also have additional components. The private components are not inherited at all. Similarly, we can have another class C3 which is derived from C2. And again, same thing happens. So we see that the public and protected section is fully inherited to class C3 from class C2. And apart from the inherited section, class C3 can again have its own additional components. Now it's important here to understand that the inheritance for class C3 also contains the components of class C2 which have been inherited from class C1. So the components from public and protected section of class C1 are inherited to C2 and further down to C3. This kind of relationship between class C1, C2 and C3 is called the inheritance tree, and class C1 is the superclass of class C2, class C2 is the superclass of class C3. The other way around, class C3 is the subclass of C2, and class C2 and C3 are the subclasses of class C1. Let's have a look at different visibility sections in a class. We have public, protected and private section. Let's take an example. We have class C1. We take another class C2 which is derived from C1. We take another class C3 which is again derived from C2. As we have learned, the public and protected section are fully inherited downwards. The private section is not inherited at all. Now the public section, as the name suggests, is fully accessible from outside. So class C1, class C2 or class C3, it does not matter which one. For all the classes it's possible to access the public section from outside. As the name suggests, it's public. The protected section can be accessed only through the subclass, which means the protected section of class C1 can only be accessed by its subclass C2, or it can be accessed by class C3, which is the further subclass of C2. So the protected section of a class is accessible only to their subclasses. Let's summarize what we have seen so far. We've seen the 4 basic principles of object-oriented programming. We have seen the components of an ABAP class. These are attributes, methods and events. We have seen class and objects and how we can create several objects from a class. We have seen inheritance and how we can derive one class from another. We have seen the visibility sections. These are public, protected and private sections in an ABAP class. With this, we conclude the session of ABAP Objects Basics. Thank you very much.